My name is Chris Fields. I'm lifelong born and raised Oklahoman. Did 32 years with the Oklahoma City Fire Department, and I've been retired just a little over 4 months.
My name is Rhonda Chapman McCowan. I'm community outreach for Ideal Homes, and I live in Norman.
1995, I was like 30 years old. Had 10 years on the job. I was hired in 1985.
I was a reporter, anchor at Channel 5, the ABC affiliate in Oklahoma City, and I was a workaholic.
April 19th, 1995, I'll always remember it was a Wednesday. It was just a routine morning, just getting things done, having coffee, exchanging shift, talking to the other shift about the things they'd done the day before. And Wednesday was yard day, so I remember some of the guys were out mowing and weed eating, doing stuff like that.
That morning when I was driving to Channel 5, I was thinking to myself, we hadn't had a large news story, but something big. I got to work, and we have our morning meeting at 8:30, and we're in our morning meeting, and all of a sudden,
I think that it's time that we told a story. I could hear the creaking of the door open in my heart. It felt as if the eeriness followed me like a shadow into the mundane. I was unaware of my baby's laughter, became so distracted by the coffee that spilled its contents on my blouse that I forgot the kiss my husband gave me that morning. I drove as fast as the speed limit would allow me to. I overlooked traffic lights, stop signs, and speed bumps. I can't even remember the song that played on the radio that morning. Music wasn't my favorite pastime anymore, because as long as the song of success hit my account, I was satisfied. I walked quickly into the doors of the place that became my second home. Time didn't sit on my side this Wednesday morning. My life felt like a never-ending dance that I couldn't quite catch the rhythm to. I couldn't waltz past the papers on my desk without being reminded that I had a closer relationship with my work than those I worked with. I occasionally would have conversations with coworkers, but my mind was full of deadlines, to-do lists, and I saw conversation as a means to an end, a waste of time. I walked past another set of doors to my office, a place where I was once confined to a clock that would tick slower than the pace in my mornings. But every minute of this day felt as heavy as my heart. And before I could put pen to paper, the clock struck 9:02 a.m.
and all of a sudden, our building we hear this loud boom, and our building shakes. And we're probably 5 miles at least from downtown Oklahoma City. And so we all immediately jumped out of the room and went outside, and there's just this giant black dark cloud of smoke over downtown Oklahoma City. And all of a sudden, all of our radios just start going crazy.
We immediately, what we call self-dispatch. We didn't wait for any orders to come over the system or anything. We just started heading this way. And still not knowing, I think we were thinking like a natural gas leak. I think at the time they were doing some construction over here, and we thought maybe it was a welder's torch, settling torch, exploded or something.
My news director said, "Rhonda, leave now," and he just sent me out the door with 3 photographers. I was the only reporter there, and so we headed downtown, and we just followed the smoke.
We got about 7 or 8 blocks away over here on Broadway and started seeing storefront windows blown out. All the smoke where we're here now was all full of, it was a parking lot. There were car fires going on over here, and you couldn't see hardly anything.
When we arrived at the scene, there were bodies lying everywhere. And that was not even at the building. That was walking up to the building. And then you get to the building and you just see smoke and just chaos and The whole front had looked like it was just scraped out and it was just gone.
Hundreds of people being taken into ambulances, those who are critically injured. The others, like this lady, they were helped on the site. There's another man being rushed in.
No wonder we see bad things every day, but this is something that you certainly don't ever hope to have to report on.
That is true. I mean, as we walked up, I could not believe what was happening. You really couldn't believe your eyes, and you especially couldn't believe that it was actually happening here in Oklahoma City.
And in an instant, I was surrounded by the debris of an explosion that not only took place around me, but in the lives of those I often ignored. I found coworkers that I once overlooked become the only thing that I could focus on. And the wind of loss swept down my plane. My dear Oklahoma was changed forever. I became overwhelmed with the sound of sirens, beckoning that death was near. I couldn't hear a voice. A lull hovered over the floor as I wept in anguish. Shock rocked me into restlessness, and I wondered if the pain I was experiencing was a result of ignorance. All I could hear was the ringing of regret that erupted in my chest. Guilt rushed my being like a nightmare. I didn't understand why God kept me alive as I was being dragged out of the doors that felt like home. I felt like a foreigner in my own country. I trembled at the fact that the same doors I entered so many times would be the same doors many would never be able to return back to. Loss has a tune that you can't ignore. Each note leads you back to a memory you wish you could relive. It derails the routine you put in place. And sadness takes precedence where joy once lived. Its melody always follows you through the revolving doors of grief.
I don't think of the building as much as I do the people that I saw that day and how they were affected. And I think that's what's made it so hard for me to come back here. Probably the hardest story I covered was a young mother who was pregnant at the time, and her husband was just making a delivery of food to the daycare, and he just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and he was killed, and he was in his early 20s. And then I went to the hospital when her daughter was born. But, you know, she's just one of many who lost loved ones, and it's just so sad because it didn't have to happen.
I think it was like 11:30 that night, Dana Bradley was taken out of the building. She was the last live person taken out of the building that day. We never removed another live victim. Everybody we handled from then on were deceased. That, you know, and then of course when I was handed Bailey. So, you know, things like that kind of stick with you.
And even to this day, it's hard when I hear strong sounds.
And so it began. As time stood still, life continued on. And in order to turn the page, the city had to rest in its new chapter and embrace a new beginning. Civilians picked up the pieces of defeat brick by brick. Though the city experienced major unrest, it became evident that the breaking of a new dawn had to emerge. Life after an explosion is inevitable. You can't run, you can't hide, but there is still life to be lived. There is still life to reclaim and life to give. Each Oklahoman gave the last of what they had to their beloved city, daily silencing the fear that tried to grip their hope of peace in their chest. And as grief began to loose its hold, so did the resilience of the survivors. Where faith grew bleak, the community rose with resources. Prayer became the pillars through which the world learned to lean on. And life gradually changed as darkness couldn't snuff out the light. We are now one with the stars, because even in darkness, we will continue to shine, to remain vigilant, to hope, to dream, to be made aware. We are now no longer ignorant of our neighbors, no longer passive in our responses to one another. We are ever evolving, seeing each other through the lens of grace. And as our story continues on, we will become better because we made the choice to see life as a door that we will now intend to pay attention to.
All of the Oklahomans were so involved, and they just had these incredible hearts that all pulled together.
And you look back at it and you say, well, that's just Oklahoma. That's just the way we've always been. A USAR team member from, I don't know if he was from LA or New York, but talked about he kept a dollar bill. He said he never had to spend $1 while he was here. And I don't know why that makes me so emotional, but I think it's just a tribute to our state. And it's sad that it takes a tragedy like that for it to come forward and to see the good in people.
I think we're still those people that have an incredible heart, and we're willing to give, and we're willing to help out those who are in need. And I think we're the same. I think the people who were here remember it, and I think we'll always remember it. The people that don't remember are simply just the people that weren't here at the time, like my kids. But I think it's important for us to keep the memory alive through our Oklahoma history lessons, through people like me going into the schools and telling them about the Oklahoma City bombing.
As a first responder, we're wired as, we're kind of givers and helpers, but everybody's wired that way, really. It wouldn't have been accomplished if it wasn't everybody helping everybody. I mean, there was no racial, social, economic, gender, nothing mattered that day. I think still they say it was one of the lowest reported crime rates in a 24-hour history after the bombing. I mean, cops were everywhere. It could have been a heyday. There was a bank right across the street that got all of its windows blown out. They didn't have time to set up any security, but no money was missing. I mean, just think stories like you hear like that all around. And it's so cliche to say it, but we're all in this together, and just don't wait for it to take a tragedy to bring out the good in people.